Hello everyone, I'm Randall Mendenhall alongside Brad Ross on location at the Range Systems Studios. Brad works with many of our commercial range customers and is the go-to guy for people in the early stages of planning and designing their range. Brad's topic today is Back from the Brink, 3 takeaways for improving your commercial shooting range plan. Brad, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Randall. Good to be here.
Okay, so a little backstory on our Back from the Brink today, our webinar. We've got a case study that's based on a true story. So Brad, what can you tell us about our webinar today?
Yeah, thanks, Randall. We're going to talk about a case study of a real situation that came to us here at the end of last year. And we're going to talk about how this customer, if they had do-overs, would do things a little bit differently to save them time and of course money. You know, to give you a little backstory on the customer, you know, this is a customer for the most part. They did most everything correct. They went through the city, they got their approvals, made sure they weren't going to be violating any city ordinances. They started working with an architect and spoke with another range provider and had even gotten a quote for the equipment. So as far as they knew, they were on track to hit all their deadlines and goals. During the process, they decided, you know what, we're just going to get a second opinion, double check our work, and that's where we came in.
All right, so they came to you and requested that second opinion. What did you find out about their goals when they came to you?
Well, the goals were pretty simple and straightforward. You know, this was new construction, so based on the time of the year, there was a bit of a sense of urgency to be able to break ground on their new building prior to the frost setting in. They're in the northern states. They had a great business plan. They had a good understanding of what the revenue drivers were, a decent understanding of what expenses, and really did a nice job of understanding what they were getting into. Based on their business plan, they had decided on 2 10-lane, 25-yard bays, and they even took the next step and decided, hey, we're going to have a third rifle bay, a 100-yard rifle bay that is, you know, going to be a goal that we shoot for in the future once they're up and running. So, again, the customer had a lot of things going for them, and they were moving full speed ahead, and you know, again, that thought out revenue generation, the business plan that they have put together is always a good sign and really helps people keep on track. So from the outside, it looked like they were ready to go with their range, and until we looked a little closer.
All right, so they thought about the revenue generation, always a good sign. And then you kind of had the backstory there with them sharing your goals. What happened when you began to engage with them and dig a little bit deeper? You had to put together a game plan, right?
My whole goal with working with these folks is not to worry about the previous quote, but to gather everything they could tell me about their project. And then that way I could provide them with the information necessary for them to make the best buying decision. And that was my whole goal going in.
So you've been engaged by the customer and you're going through all of their plans and goals. What did you find out and what did you uncover when you went through a full review of that information?
You know, the first thing I noticed was each bay was 50 foot wide. and making each of the lanes about 5 foot on center. And in talking to the customer, they just wanted to make sure that this was a very comfortable place, a family feel to it. They were going to do some training, so they wanted the additional width of each lane to be very comfortable and not imposing. You know, first of all, when you have a bay that goes over a certain amount of feet, in this case 42 foot, you get additional costs, because at that point you're no longer dealing with commercial equipment. You move into industrial, and it's just a more expensive ventilation package that you have to do. So to me, it was unnecessary width. In addition, when you're looking at building a range, within reason, obviously, the length of the range doesn't change the price all that much. Sure, you got maybe extra overhead protection and a longer retrieval system, but for the most part, what determines the price of a range is the width. So with a for-profit business, it's important to minimize upfront costs and maximize the profit potential. And the idea of the 5-foot wide lanes, in addition to wasting some of that space, it actually gives a false sense of security to the shooters. The more narrow booths still provide ample privacy. 4 foot, we see them as low as 3.5 foot. They provide ample space even for training. But the main thing, in addition to saving the money on the width, is when you have more narrow booths, it really does a good job of promoting proper muzzle control. When you have this wide open space, especially new shooters, it's very easy to lose that discipline of where that muzzle's pointed, and you know, obviously that's where really bad things can happen. If this customer decided that they still wanted to go with the 50-foot wide bays and they were okay paying the additional money for the HVAC, I would have recommended that they try to squeeze in 1 or 2 more lanes to just give themselves additional sources of revenue. So they knew they needed revisions with the drawings, not only to change the width, which made a lot of sense to them. It made even, but also the trap. The changes to the bays made even more sense to them because it allowed them to shave 16 foot off of the overall width of their 210 lane bays, and it darn near covered the square footage for this pistol, or excuse me, for the rifle bay that they had planned for the future. So even though we had to do a lot of changes, my recommendation to them was, hey, we're closing in on the frost. Breaking ground's going to be a challenge. We did save a bunch of space. We do have to redo the drawings. I recommend you put up the walls for that rifle bay, because not only do we save enough, nearly enough space, but doing it all at once while the contractor's on site, and you know, it's just a cost savings opportunity. And you know, again, they knew they were going to do it, and because of the changes, the delays, and the cost savings, they decided, yeah, that's a good move. We're just going to go ahead and do this right away.
All right, so you've got your customer, they're moving forward, you've kind of had the values alignment, you went back, revised the drawings, were able to squeeze extra space out by revising those drawings, actually went ahead with the third bay, the rifle bay. And what would you say would be the 3 takeaways then for our listeners today?
Find that range provider that's going to speak to you, and really have the care of, you know, making sure you're starting your business off running.